Hello, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and get started a little bit sooner, just to make sure that everything is working. And I have my laptop, and I'm going to go over here to pull up the comments so I can read comments. I don't think I can read comments from my phone, so that's why I'm going to come over here to my laptop and see if I can read them. So y'all just bear with me for the first couple of minutes while I get things set up. Thanks for joining me today. I'm still here, y'all. All right, do I have anybody on? All right, so I am just getting things set up. I see that 2 people have now joined. I have my laptop up so I can see the comments. I don't know if I can see the comments from my phone, so this is how we're going to do it tonight. How's everyone doing tonight? I look kind of funny watching myself from the laptop. It's a little delayed, so I can tell there's a little bit of delay in there, but that's all right. All right, we still have 6 more minutes before the live video starts. If you are on, go ahead and comment down below. Let me know you're watching. Say hi. If you are just now joining us, I have a materials needed that I posted in the event and also on the group if you are in the group. If you are not in the group and you are just chiming in just to see what's going on, I have a Facebook group. It's called Vinyl DIY, Vinyl Wood Signs, Tumbler Cups, Glitter, Tips, and Tricks. Okay, so at the end of the video, I will put the link to the group at the bottom, so that way you guys can follow along if you are interested in making tumblers and stuff like that. I also make wood signs, anything to do with vinyl cutting. So that's why I just put all these bunch of keywords in the title. So it'll make it easier for people to find me. All right, a few more minutes, guys. Want to give people the chance to sign on before I get going. 6:56 starts at 7 o'clock. I did have music playing in the background last time, but YouTube said that it was copyright infringement on one of the songs, so I won't be listening to music in the background in the future, even though it was very, very little background noise. So that's all right. If you guys are on, go ahead and give me a thumbs up or comment below. I see that 6 people are on. I am going to be looking at this. This is how we're going to record, and then look at my laptop for comments. I'm not sure how the live is going to work. So we'll see if I can see the comments from the phone or the laptop. Three more minutes. How's everyone doing tonight? All right, 2 more minutes. I don't even see where people can comment on the laptop. I see like a little comment thing up here. Let me see what this does. It says show live chat. We'll see what that does. It's kind of funny watching yourself on the phone and then coming to the laptop and looking at it. All right. 1 more minute, then we'll go ahead and get started. I won't be able to jam out to my music this time. Yay, 1 thumbs up. All right, it is 7 o'clock. Okay, we will go ahead and get started. So tonight, I'd like to welcome everybody out. We are going to do kind of a live and chat. Hello, Tiffany. Yay, I can see the comments on the phone. We are going to make some tumblers with the glitter on them. I just want to show you a couple of tumblers that I have done, and we will get started. It looks like I can't see comment streaming. Like, hang on, let me try something, one more thing, because the comments went away. So if I look down, I won't be able to find the comments. Hang on. Oh, there they are. Okay, I see. All right, perfect. So now we can go ahead and get started. If you guys are in the group, try to keep this post bumped. We have only 6 people on when I had 40, 50 people wanting to know how to do these tumblers last night. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Jessica. I am the admin of the Facebook group that you probably found this link in. And I want to show you a couple of the tumblers that I've done. We are going to glitter a tumbler tonight, but I also want to show you a couple of other ways, not how to do them, but I'll show you there are different options other than glittering a tumbler. So we have just spray paint. So this is literally spray paint. So I did an ombre effect to this one. It has metallic gold and purple on it, and this has one layer of epoxy on here. This is a tissue paper tumbler. This is literally tissue paper. So, you know, the tissue paper that you put in gift baskets and gift bags and stuff like that, this is what this is. This has been ripped apart, pulled apart, and then Mod Podged on and epoxied right over it. This is just one color of spray paint on here with one coat of epoxy on that one. We have decoupage. This is a decoupage paper. So this is, I found at Hobby Lobby, and I already put the decal on here. So this was a different method than we're going to do tonight. I will have a tutorial on this soon. This has epoxy over the top layer. And then for our glitter, we will do this later on as well. This is a pencil glitter tumbler. So this tutorial will be coming soon. And just a glitter one. So this is all glitter. It has a decal already on it, and we are going to be doing this tonight. Okay, so a couple people still watching. You guys say hi. Do a little thumbs up so I know you're watching. If you are still in the group and you see people wanting to know how to do the tumblers, let them know that we are live tonight. So a couple things that we need first. We need to make sure that we have epoxy. So there are two different epoxies that I like to use. I like to use Max CLR. This is a 2-part epoxy. It is not a 1-to-1 ratio. So as you can see, one bottle is bigger than the other. I like this one because it stays looking clear even in the bottle for much longer than the one that you get at Hobby Lobby. This is a little bit more expensive, so it's your preference on what you use. I get this off of their actual website or on Amazon. And the other one is going to be the Amazing Clear Cast. This is actually the bigger bottle. I noticed I got this a little bit like 2 weeks ago or something. So these are the bigger bottles. They come in the smaller ones as well, but this is a 1-to-1 ratio. And you see how it kind of looks yellow, and the other one I've had for quite a while, so I do like that one a little bit better. So we are going to be using this because a lot of people use this versus the other one. So you need your epoxy, and you're also going to need measuring cups and little cups to put the other stuff in. So I use Dixie cups. And then I also use little medicine cups to measure my epoxy out in, okay? So this has the numbers on here. Some people use the pump. That's up to you. I have always done the measuring cup, so that's what I stick with. You're also going to need stir stick, something to stir it with. These are just popsicle sticks. They're super cheap at Hobby Lobby. They come in a pack of probably 1,000. They're in the kids' craft section, okay? You are going to need glitter. Lots of places for you to get glitter. I get these at Michael's. These, I believe, are $8.99. I'm not really sure on the price. Comes in 5 ounces. You can get glitter everywhere. So Hobby Lobby, Michael's, Walmart. You can get it online. All kinds of different places. You are going to need an Expo marker, so we can mark off a line that we do. If that's your preference. Electrical tape. You're going to need a squeegee. So this is a squeegee. This is a little squeegee. Something to varnish your stuff down with. And this magical stuff. So here is where I keep my paintbrushes. So even though it's blue, they've just been sitting here for a long time. This has acetone in it. And so when I'm done with my epoxy on my paintbrush, I just stick it in this little jar. So this is where this is. Some people use their finger to apply the epoxy with. I prefer not to do that. That's just my preference. So I use a paintbrush. And what else we got? scissors, decal, if you want to do a decal. I am going to cut out a decal, so I've already printed my decal. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. If you guys are just joining us, we are making a glitter tumbler cup. So I see 11 people on. If you are in the group, go ahead and tag your buddies to come watch. A lot of people wanted to see the video tonight, so I don't want them to miss it. Okay, so I didn't have any 30-ounce cups that already had this left on it. So I'm going to show you how we can get this off. There's a wine glass. I use Ozark. I get my cups from Walmart. You can get them all over the place. This is just my preference and what I found for the project we're doing tonight. So I'm going to move my glitter pan out of the way because it's going to be a mess. Also, you'll need a heat gun. You'll need something to have your cup spinning on, stuff like that. Okay, so I am going to get this. And you're probably thinking, well, why not just rip it off, right? Well, it has all that sticky stuff on it. So we are going to get this loose. So now we're left with this, right? So somebody taught me in one of the Tumbler groups to get heat gun, and you are going to heat gun this up. So this is going to get all the sticky, just lift it right up. The tumbler will get hot, so make sure you don't burn yourself. So I'm just going to heat up that stickiness so I can just peel it right off. So I'm going to just keep going until I feel like I shouldn't. Okay. And I'm going to peel it off. Came right off. If you guys do not have a heat gun, yeah, so it's super hot, but see how that came right off? It's all gone. If you guys do not have a heat gun, I highly suggest you guys get a heat gun because the method that I use requires a heat gun. I just found that easier. Another way that you can do this is peel this off, and then you can get acetone. Well, this one's like opening a present. Okay, so take all this off. So see how you're left with all that gunk? So let's see if I just spill everything. So acetone is in a big bottle. You can get in a smaller thing, and you are going to wipe it off, basically. Okay. So I get paper towel, and then I don't see my little razor blade on the table. All right, so pretend like I had my razor blade. So I'm going to let the alcohol or the acetone on here, soak on here, and then I'd get my razor blade, and it comes right off that way too. The other way seems to be easier. Oh, see how it's coming off a little bit with just my finger now? So the heat gun just makes it come right off. So you can rub it off, or you can get the a knife and scrape it off, okay? We are going to do a 30-ounce today, so I really don't have to do that. I just want to show you how to do that. All right, the next process you're going to do is you're going to prep your tumbler. Prepping means you want to make sure that you get all that icky stuff off the tumbler and oils off the tumbler. So what I do is I get sandpaper, and it's the wet dry sandpaper. This is 600 grit. I got this at Ace Hardware. And if it was easy to track this thing in the bathroom, I would, but it's not really that easy. So I'm just going to show you what we're going to do. Under the water, I don't like using full sheets. All right, so this can be put in water. So all you're going to do is you're going to sand the whole thing off, okay? So underneath the water. So this, all sand it and make sure that it has all of it. See how it's like this? You're going to cover it with glitter so it's not that big of an issue that you see all that. So prep your cups first. That a lot of people ask, why isn't my epoxy sticking? Why does it have a bunch of dimples and stuff like that? You just want to make sure that you start out with a clean cup. Okay, next step. Y'all keeping along? I see only 11 people on right now. Looks like it's you and me, Tiffany, if you're still on. Alright, so next step is, this is the way I do my cups. I spray paint my cups. Yay, Tiffany! It's you and me! So I spray paint my cups, and that just gives it a good base coat, so that way your glitter doesn't, the stainless steel doesn't show through on the glitter, okay? Yay, Kim is on! So a couple different ways how you can prep the cup. I spray paint in a spray paint box, and I pull that outside. Since I do live in an apartment, I have to make sure that I have ventilation, stuff like that. So you always use safety measures when you're spray painting a cup. So you can go all the way to the top, and then you can also spray paint the bottom. So when I spray paint, I put my cups upside down in my spray paint bin, and then I spray the whole thing, and I let it dry. So I either let it dry or I bake it in my toaster oven, so that way the spray paint cures, so then I can use this cup tonight. Another way is you can tape it off. So I tape it off. The reason why you need an expo marker in this tutorial is because you want to make a good even line. So if you haven't seen me in other tutorials, I get my even lines by grabbing something with height and then the way, how high I want something. So I put my expo marker right on top of something, and then I grab this and I spin it right around, okay? So for this one, I did, I think, 2 popsicle sticks. So we'll do 4, so that way I have something level with. So I grab this. I grab my expo marker. I put it on the popsicle sticks. Then I got my cup, and I spun it around. So we just spun it around and got that marker all over the bottom of the cup. And I did the same thing when I flipped it over. So I got the expo marker, and I just went like this. And so I had a really good crisp line on that. And so then I used my electrical tape to tape it off, and then got rid of the expo marker lines, okay? And then I spray painted it. All right, so now that would be about step 2-ish, right? So the next step is we are going to glitter. So we need to get our epoxy out, and I use 1 Dixie cup, and then I use 2 measuring cups. Okay, so we're going to use the Amazing Clear Cast tonight. Just because I'm using that one, I do prefer to use the Max CLR. I'm going to use this one tonight just so everyone else uses this one. Almost everybody uses this one that I see in the group. So we're going to go ahead and just stick with this. This is the one that you can get at Hobby Lobby. It comes in several different sizes at Hobby Lobby. This is just the cool one that I found recently. So people ask me, how much do I mix? Normally, I'm doing multi-cups at once, so I mix this whole thing, which is 1 ounce. So normally, I mix this whole thing. I do part 1 in this, and then part 2 in the other one with the whole thing. But we are going to glitter 2 cups, so I'm not going to do all that. I'm not going to do that much on there. So maybe I'll do 1/2 ounce of one and 1/2 ounce of the other one. So that's what we're going to start out with. So that's all. You're literally going to pour this in there. So make sure you're at 1/2 ounce. If you do not have even parts, it will not cure right. And I do like the bigger bottle of this one because it has this little nozzle. So put that one aside. All right, so we did 1/2 ounce on that one, so we're going to go ahead and do the other 1/2 ounce on this one. I have a light fixture shining over here just so I can see better, and it's making this a little bit harder to do. All right, let's see where we're at with that one. It stops pouring out. All right, so it looks like we have 1/2 ounce and 1/2 ounce. So I make sure I put lids back on things because I'm very, very clumsy and I will spill everything. So I get my popsicle stick and my Dixie cup. We are going to pour this in here. And if you leave some in your mixing cup, you will have uneven parts still. So make sure you really get it as much as you can out of here. Okay, so that's pretty good. So I'm going to put this measuring cup next to the part that I just used, and then I'm going to pour the other one in here. Now, a lot of people just have those little pumps on their epoxy. You could do that too. This is just, I've just always done it this way, so it's the way I'm going to keep doing it. All right, so now we have both parts in there, okay? So I'm going to give it a good stir. I'm going to stir it in the middle, and then I'm also going to make sure I get the sides off of it. So if you have sticky cups, then something is going on with the epoxy. So either it didn't cure long enough or it wasn't mixed right. So you just have to make sure that you're starting out with some good epoxy, some good stirrage, if that's a word. So I do that a couple times. So I'm grabbing the walls of it, making sure that I get all of it off the walls, okay? And then I take it off my popsicle stick and then do it again. And then we're gonna give it some more good stirring here. We wanna make sure that this is completely stirred. And since this is a live video, it's going to be a long video too. So it will be up after the live, obviously. Okay. So I'm going to do it one more time. So I'm taking it all off my popsicle stick, and then I'm going to give it a good stir. So taking it off the walls of here, making sure it's off the bottom. And everyone says, well, why is there so many bubbles in here now? Because I just stirred the crap out of 2 chemicals is why. So if you look in here, see all those bubbles? So some people let this sit. I do not let it sit. I'm too impatient for that. And normally I do so many cups at once. It doesn't, I don't like letting it sit because then I have less time to go and do my cups. So this first step, it doesn't matter if there's bubbles in it because you're putting glitter right over the top of the epoxy. So this doesn't matter. So letting it sit also makes it a little bit thicker. So when you just now mix it, it is going to be super, super liquidy. So I'm looking in there to make sure I don't spill it everywhere. So it's going to be super liquidy. So if you guys see all those bubbles, another way that you can get the bubbles to go away is the magical heat gun. So this is what some people do as well. I don't do this, but I'm just going to show you. And don't breathe it in either. So I just did the top of it, and then some people go and stir it so that way the epoxy's hot and it kind of kills all the bubbles underneath. So you do that a couple times. That also makes it thicker, quicker, okay? I would say cure, but it takes a long time for it to cure. All right, so this is the next step. We're gonna put this right here. We're gonna grab whatever type of thing we're going to use to apply the epoxy. I do not use my fingers. I hate the feel of it already, so I use a paintbrush. And so I'm just going to get my paintbrush out of here. This has acetone in here, and that's how I clean my brushes out. And if you close your mason jar, then it preserves the acetone and it won't evaporate. All right, so now we have our paintbrush. We are going to get our oil pan. And I have the paper plate in here. Hang on, guys. Okay. So we have the paper plate in here. So I make sure all the glitter's off of here. And some people hold their cups a little bit different. You can either, easy way to hold it is like this. You can put it like in your hand right here, or you can, I have my PVC pipe and my sponge. you can hold it like this as well. So that's up to you. So I just make sure the sponge is in there, and then you can hold it like this. So this is all your preference, how you want to hold your cup. So I do both, no method to that madness. My first coating, we already cleaned the cup. It's already been sanded, wet sanded with 600 grit sandpaper. We spray painted it. We taped it off where we wanted it to be taped off at. And now we're going to apply the epoxy and the glitter. This first step, most of the time I don't put on the spinner. I do a little epoxy on here so it doesn't drip. And then most of the time, the first step, I just set down somewhere. And so these don't actually get on the spinner, go on the spinner. When I do the other steps, they do. So as long as you don't like super coat this, because if on the first step you have the epoxy and the glitter dripping, you will see those drip marks and you're going to have to start over. So you have to be very careful unless you put it on a spinner. Now, if you put it on a spinner, obviously it's going to be doing this is what we want it to do. But you really don't want to coat the first one, because if it starts dripping on your spinner, then it's going to look weird. So we don't want to do that. All right, so now I have my paintbrush, my epoxy ready, and I'm going to make sure I have my glitter open, because that's what I always mess up. I have like all this epoxy. Yeah, see, I don't have it open. All right, so this one's really cool. This is the bling from Michaels. It's super blingy. Like, it's awesome. I mix this in a bunch of my other glitters to make it look holographic without buying the holographic glitter. So it's pretty cool. All right, so we're going to open our glitter up. We got 15 people watching now. On the Facebook Live, we have so many more people on there. So I keep bumping the YouTube post for this tutorial. A lot of people wanted to see it, but we have 14 people watching. Okay, so we are going to get some of our epoxy here and put it on here. So I make sure I'm kind of picking it up on here. So I'm picking it up and I'm going to put it on here. So right now it doesn't matter if it's this way or if it's this way. We're just going to go ahead and just apply it on here. So this, I do not want it to be caked. This first layer, we are not caking it on. So I just give the cup a good, some good epoxy on there. And then I try not to spill the epoxy in my oil pan, but I just did, so. I'll have to get those chunks of glitter out when the epoxy dries. All right, so now I have epoxy all kind of in the middle. So now I'm gonna kind of baby it around the top. So I'm gonna go this way, make sure that I have the epoxy all on the top here. So I'm just gonna get a little bit more on my paintbrush, and we're gonna go around the top. Most of the time I go like this when I have the tape on, because I don't want the epoxy getting underneath the tape. I try to remember that as I'm doing it. All right, so then I kind of go this way. Now, if I'm putting my epoxy on and I feel kind of a stop, that means there's probably not enough epoxy in that area. And so I paint it white. So if you're just now jumping on, I painted it white just so that stainless color underneath wasn't going to be showing through on my glitter. So it kind of makes the glitter pop a little bit more as well. All right, so on this guy right here, you just got to make sure that it's all in those crevices. So you go every which way. So make sure it's all on there. And so like I said, when you're applying the epoxy, it doesn't matter if you go this way or that way. You don't want to apply too much, because then it drips and then you're going to have a bad time. And when you get little fuzzies in there, just take them off. Okay, so now I'm going to just make sure that there's epoxy all over this cup. And so a lot of people buy the already coated tumblers at Walmart, which is totally fine. You can do that. It's already coated. If it's not the color that you want, you can paint those and then do it the color that you do want. A lot of people say, what kind of paint do you use? Most of the time I use Rust-Oleum. I get that at Walmart. Home Depot or Lowe's, and or whatever's on sale. I don't really have a favorite, but that's what a lot of people use. Okay, so now we have a pretty good coat of the epoxy on there. If I see any kind of potential drip, like there's too much coating on there, then I want to make sure and I go and grab it off, because we don't want the epoxy to be dripping. So epoxy dripping on the first coat, no, because that makes all your glitter drippy. All right, so now we have a good coat on that. So now I'm gonna put my paintbrush, I'm gonna put it right on top of my little Dixie cup. So good morning or evening. Yay, more people jumped on. Okay, so now I have my glitter here. So we are going to glitter the tumbler. So there's no method to this madness either. I am going to go all around the whole thing. And so since my paper plate is only this big and my tumbler is a little bit bigger than that, I most of the time start at one end and then I work my way up to the other end. Yeah, so I love this glitter. It's super, super blingy. Like, it's awesome. So see how awesome it is? So when you use the epoxy right over this, it is awesome. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the top. So some people say, well, how much glitter do you put on here? You will notice if you're putting the glitter on here, and if you go on certain spots, like I can already see it. Let me shake it off and show you. It kind of looks like we painted, hey Sarah, we painted the tumbler with spray paint. So I actually didn't even show you the spray paint. So it's Rust-Oleum, and this one is already taped off, and so I just spray paint it right over it. So if you notice, let's see on a good part. Let's see if the camera, yeah, the camera is catching it a little bit. Right here, see where it's a different color? It kind of has that wet look. That means the epoxy is, or the glitter is not coated enough in that spot. So you want to make sure that you keep going over that spot. And so then some people say, well, how do I know? I normally coat the whole thing with the glitter, and then like I keep pouring this glitter. So I'm going to probably empty this entire bottle on this cup. But luckily we have the paper plate underneath it, so that then we can just pour this back into our shaker and it'll be just fine. So I just keep coating it. We're going to keep coating it because I see all these wet spots. And if you have a really thick coat of epoxy, then you're going to have a bad time. So you just want to make sure that you have a really thin coat the first layer. I know I always say cake on the epoxy. That is on the second coat, not on this first coat. So we're going to keep pouring. We're going to keep pouring on here. So I'm going around. Have y'all ever noticed how heavy the tumblers get after a while? Maybe I'm just out of shape and the tumbler's that heavy. All right, so I got the bottom pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and do this top part. So I did have music on in my last video, and YouTube emailed me and said that I have copyright infringement. And so I'm like, seriously? I don't have copyright infringement. So I listened back to the part that they said that I was infringing on Chris Brown of a song. So I had to take that part out of my YouTube video. And I only had the song on the background. It was pretty funny. So normally I craft with some music on. So this is a little bit weird for me with no music on in the background. I thought about putting a headset on, like just my little earpiece, but I don't think I'm that multitasky type person. All right, so literally, this is what I do. So I just keep coating this on here. So all of this is going on my paper plate at the bottom. So I'm going to keep coating it. So it's going to soak into the epoxy. And that's okay. So I'm going to look right here. So I still see some wet spots, and this was a new bottle, but it's all on that paper plate, so we're good. I use just the paper plates. They're easy to fold to put it back into the shaker. So it's super easy. And if you're just now tuning in, we prepped the cup earlier. We, well, pretended like we did, but I showed you how to do it. So, oh, you also need to clean the cup when you're done sanding it. So I always use Dawn to clean it. Dawn is just awesome. So I use that on the inside and the outside. I just get all those oils off, all the grease, anyone's fingerprints, any of that stuff, because that'll affect the way that the epoxy is going to settle on the cup, and you want to make sure that you have a good clean cup to start out with. And then I taped off the cup with my electrical tape that I always use, and taped it off where I wanted the epoxy, the glitter not to be. Okay, so now I'm going to give it a good push on here. And I'm going to put this down. I'm going to open up my jar here. Maybe. This is why I have glitter everywhere. Sarah, you're thinking that's a no, he's not going to build you one? It's okay. You don't have to have a spinner. You can turn it, you can have it sitting down somewhere and just kind of flip it everywhere. All right, so I'm going to put this all back in here. Okay, and if you notice how full this still is, that's how much glitter we used on this cup. Okay, so I'm going to do it again. I do not want part of my cup to have some of the wet look on it, so I want to make sure that it's all the same kind of texture. So what the wet look I'm talking about, you can hardly tell once you have a second coat of epoxy on there, but this cup was literally all the wet look. Oh, you just built your spinner today. That's awesome, Tiffany. How do you like it? So this one right here has all the wet look. So you can kind of tell in here that the wet look is basically where the glitter is mixed into the epoxy versus just sitting on top of the epoxy, in and on top, okay? So this, the whole thing was a wet look. So a dry look looks like this, okay? So that is what it should look like versus it kind of looks a little foggy, okay? Sitting here with the cup spinning while watching, that's awesome. All right, so we're gonna do another coat of this glitter. And I put this apron on so I don't put epoxy on my shorts, and I just put epoxy on my shorts, so that's awesome. All right, so we're gonna go back. I do see some wet spots at the bottom in that crease. And some people say, how do you decide where you want to put the electrical tape? That's all preference. That's up to you. So some people they tape it off right at the crease at the bottom of their tumbler. I don't. I put it a little bit farther down, so that's all preference. You can pull it all the way, the glitter all the way to the lip of your cup if you wanted to do that. I do sometimes, or I tape it off. So lots of different ways how you can do that. Okay. Now that dry look still needs epoxy. So that has one more, it needs another coat of epoxy on there. But I wish the camera would pick up what the wet looks like. You want all of your glitter and the epoxy on the first step of your cup to be a consistent look, okay? So if some of it looks like you spilled water on it, that's what I'm talking about. It's a wet look. So you want this epoxy, you want this glitter to mix into the epoxy on the cup and also sit right on top of the epoxy. The wet look basically just mixes in with the epoxy. So I do this. I might not, well, I might empty the whole thing. And so some people like shake it off each time. I don't. I'm going to go ahead. Yes, Kim. So Kim says, won't the dry glitter have the wet look after the epoxy? So, like I said, I wish I could show you. I wish you could actually see in this. Hang on, let's see. Here's this purple. Okay, I think this is the same purple with some ombre in it. Okay, so this cup right here, this has already a coat of epoxy on it. So this one's done, okay? And the other one's done as well. If you look in here, the glitter was mixed in the epoxy. Okay, so when I poured the glitter on here, I'll show you on the next cup we do. I'm gonna do another one, and I won't coat it with the glitter knot, and maybe we can tell the difference between that way. This one, it was all dry looking, so it was like that gold one that I just showed you. So the glitter was actually sitting on top of the epoxy. Can you guys still see me? It's a bad connection for a second there. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and continue doing this silver one, and then we're gonna go back and we'll do that blue one, and I'll show you the difference in it real quick. All right, so I'm gonna shake it off. It did freeze while showing the cups. So this is the way it's supposed to look. So this has epoxy, then the glitter, but then this is the right way to do it, okay? So this one, I was trying something different to see what it looked like if I didn't cake on the glitter and it had a wet look to it. And then obviously it's coated again with epoxy on top, okay? So I'm gonna try to do it with the blue one that we're gonna do. So the silver, the blingy cup, we are done with. I hate these lids. That's why there's glitter everywhere, guys. Okay, so I'm gonna pour this all back in here. And put this aside. And then we are going to do that blue one, the bluish one. And let me see if I can try to do that wet look I'm telling you about. Okay, so this has all the glitter. So it looks even to me. So I just make sure that it's even. So this stage of this cup, I most of the time do not put it on the spinner. So tonight I'm not going to. So I have somewhere that I set this. I do sit it right here and then also do this a couple times throughout the night. So I'm going to go ahead and just set it aside for now. And then a little bit later, I'm going to put this in my, it's just a shelf that happened to have a little hole in it. So I can put that on there. All right, so now this one actually is going to have the little spongy thing since the bottom is painted. Okay. I have glitter everywhere. Was it inside the tumbler? I have a PVC pipe and then a sponge. It's all jagged, but this what works for me. A lot of people have those pool noodles. I like the sponge a little bit better than the pool noodles. And so I just squish the sponge right in there. So now it's holding it. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and make sure that our other glitter is opened. These things are a pain in the butt to get open. Okay, so it is. And I need a drink, and it is not moonshine if y'all are watching my other video the other night. All right. I look really weird drinking out of a bottle on freaking live YouTube. It's awesome. Okay, So we have our epoxy already stirred. And so see how I could epoxy that whole thing and I still have some liquid in here. It's liquidy, not super thick. And we are going to glitter this one. Okay, so this one is all the way to the lip and it's on the bottom. I generally don't like doing the bottoms because it's a little bit more difficult to put it on the spinner on the second coat. When I do have tumblers that have the paint on the bottom, I generally put it on the spinner and then glitter it on that. I have multi-cup spinners and also have a single cup spinner. And that way I can glitter while it's on the spinner and it's not getting anywhere. Oh yeah, my mason jar has glitter on it this time, so it kind of doesn't look like actual moonshine, huh? That's the cup I normally have in here. I drink out of mason jars just because you get a lot more water from it. Okay, so I'm putting a pretty generous amount, but we're not caking on the epoxy for this first layer, guys. You do not want this first layer to drip. If you're just now jumping on, first layer dripping is no-go. Do not do that. Okay, so most of the time I put it right in the middle. We want to make sure that we have the epoxy all in the middle too. So now, in order to get the epoxy not to go in the lip, we have to make sure that we just go up, okay? We're going to wisp it up. We do not want to do this way because then your paintbrush will get underneath that. All right, so that looks pretty good. I'm going back over some spots because there's too much epoxy there and I do not want it dripping. So I just want to make sure that that is not going to be a problem later on. I don't use the sponge brushes anymore because it left too much particles in everything and it just soaks up the epoxy that I just wasted so much epoxy doing that. So I used to do that. But then I found little paintbrushes that go inside of a mason jar and I just set them in there. I don't even wash the brushes. I just set them back into my mason jar and then use it the next time. This one does have like a little blue tint, but it's not affecting anything. All right, so I'm just going back over this and making sure that all of that epoxy is even. We don't want any caked on spots. And I'm making sure I'm going in an upward motion so that way I don't put the epoxy right into my cup. If you do accidentally do that, you can get it off. It's just annoying. Okay, so now we're going to go and do the bottom. So this, you do want the epoxy to get in that little crease on there. So all that gets in there. Okay, now we're gonna do the bottom. And I see all this different colored glitter on there. It's not gonna matter. We're about to put glitter on top of it. You wanna make sure that you get into that little crease there. And if you have any of the words on the bottom, make sure you get the epoxy in those little tiny words. Make sure you get the little rim here. And then make sure you take off any excess epoxy that you do have on the bottom. We do not want it dripping. All right, so now I'm just gonna go over, look at the whole cup and see where we're at. All right, so that looks pretty good. So it doesn't look like any of the spots will be dripping. I don't think anyways. It's hard. I don't know how to fix it once it drips on the first layer. So I just always have just stripped the cups. So that's why you really just don't want it to do that. Okay, so now we have the blue. Okay, so let me try to do that wet method that I was telling you. It's not the wet method. You don't want it to look like this. I was just seeing what would happen if it did look like that. And I can tell the difference in the result. So Okay, so that looks like what I'm talking about. So let me do a really good caked on right here. Let's see if you can tell the difference in the camera. I was gonna knock the bottom to get the glitter off, but you can't do that. All right. I do not add the glitter to epoxy unless I want it to shimmer a little bit more afterwards. So I do this, but then if I want an extra shimmer to the top, then yes, I do that. Okay, so that looks like what I'm talking about. So if you see this side, sorry, there's something in my eye. If you see this side right here, this is a good caked on color. This is where it's inside the epoxy, so you're not getting that full effect of the glitter. So this right here, this line is what you want it to look like. You want it to be full of color, full of glitter. This right here, you see how it's inside. So it does give it a different look. So if that's the way you like it, then go for it. But so you see how this right here, that's kind of the fuller effect. This, not so much. It's soaked into the epoxy. This is in the epoxy and on top of the epoxy. So on the first coat, you really want to get a good coat of that glitter. So you guys see what I'm talking about? So I'm going to go ahead and continue glittering the whole cup. So this is a good coat. This is not so good. Unless you like it like that. So then that's totally fine. So just want to show you guys. So it's not the wet method versus the dry method. Sorry, I don't know. Stumbling over my words or whatever. But that's the difference in it. So you guys can see. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and give the whole cup a good coat. So someone asked, how long do I work with the epoxy before it starts to set up? That epoxy over there, I don't let it sit. So if you just now tuned in, I do not let my epoxy sit before I start working with it. A lot of people let it sit to get rid of the bubbles. On your first coat of epoxy on the tumbler, there's no need to get rid of the bubbles because we're going to cover it with glitter anyways. Now on the other coats, yes, you want to get rid of any bubbles or dimples and all that stuff. But on this first coat, it's not going to matter. So to answer that question, I can do, normally I work with 2 full ounces of epoxy. I do not know how much epoxy I use on one tumbler. I always mix the 2 ounces and then I just keep going at it. So I make new cups, I do second coats, I do third coats. So I just keep using that epoxy until it goes. So on this first coat, I use a very, very, very thin coat. So right now, I can see if that epoxy's set up yet, if it got thick or not. So it's not thick. So it's still a little liquefied. If you put heat on your epoxy, it will set up a little bit quicker. I do that on my second coat. I do not do it on my first coat. So I'm caking on this glitter. We are caking it on. So I want to make sure this glitter is completely even. I'm going to empty out this entire bottle onto this. So that's why we have the paper plate underneath it here. You guys are quiet today. What's everybody doing? Are we crafting tonight? What are we doing? I'm crafting. I worked all day. So I worked all day. I put on my makeup because I'm like, okay, I'm going to do a live video tonight. So I put on my makeup. I got my hair done, but you can't even tell I got it done. That's okay. Sort of. And I did some homework and then I started up the tutorial. All right, so here you can tell that this is a good coat. Here, I need more. So right here, I would need more of the coating, okay? So if you see that, That's what I'm talking about. If you put on your second coat and you see that unevenness, you will see it more when you put on your second coat of epoxy. Big containers of glitter, Sarah, I get at Michael's. This is Recollections, so it is in the scrapbooking section. Now I'm going to have to put the paper plate, all that glitter in here, and set my cup down. All right, so I'm going to empty this bottle on here. And so I see at the very top here that I do need some more glitter up there too. Okay, so that's empty. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go stick this in my little thing real quick. And I know I didn't get the bottom of that. Oh, awesome, Tiffany. Did he have fun at flag football? So you just built your spinner just now today? Did you do a multi-cup spinner or did you do a one-cup spinner? Okay, so now I need to glitter the bottom. So I have all the glitter back into my little shaker and we are going to glitter the bottom. So I put it at an angle and I just splash on this glitter here. Oh, that's awesome, Tiffany. Are you excited about it now? I started off with just a 1-cup spinner, but I had the multi-spinners. I don't like them. So I'm in the process of making multi 1-cup spinners. So that's the way I'm going to do it from now on, you know, in my free time. Okay, so that is just coming right off of it. It is so much better than turning it by hand, when you have a spinner. You just turn that sucker on and you can leave it alone. I don't like when I'm shaking the glitter in the camera because I have my bat wings are flapping in the wind over here. Okay, so that looks like it's a pretty good coat at the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and do a lot more glitter here. I do not want it to have any wet looking spots. So I can already see at the rim here. So see right there at the rim, you can kind of see it, that not enough glitter was up there. Not a lot of people are on this live video tonight. I guess everyone wanted to stay on Facebook, huh? They don't want to leave Facebook. I turn off my notifications on my phone so that way my phone's not blowing up like it was the other night. Doo-doo-doo. Their loss. I know. I'm trying to keep all my videos in one spot because everyone says, do you have a video for this? Do you have a video for that? Yes, it's on the wall somewhere. And then the file section, it's in the file section of the group, and that wasn't working either. So I'm going to try the whole YouTube thing, put all the videos on YouTube. So it's not going to always be live. I was testing out tonight to see how it would work out. All right, so on the bottom, see that wet spot? You can see it shimmering in the light there. So that's not white. That's not white, see? So that's a wet looking spot. So this is why I keep going over with the glitter. So I'm always putting more and more and more glitter on it. I was trying out the live thing tonight to see how it would do on YouTube. Only 18 people are watching versus the 120 that I had the other night, so I don't know how well that'll work out. I like doing it so that way I can answer questions, because I know when I'm watching a video and I'm trying to figure out how to do something and I'm literally yelling at the YouTube video, well, how do you do this? How do you do this? So, and then they don't answer it till 100 hours later. So that's why I like the live videos. So I'm pretty much going to empty this whole blue on here again. Just to make sure, since those little wet spots kind of snuck up on me. Yeah, it's definitely a little bit weirder not to have my music on for when I'm crafting. All right, good night, Kim. I'll try not to yak too much tonight so it's not a 3-hour long video. All right, the bottle's almost empty. Then we can put this down. I think that'll be a good coat. All right, so we're going to give it a good shake. Do not hit the bottom of your cup if it has glitter on it. Because I always do. All right, so now we have a good full coat of glitter on here. So we have a good full coat. So now I'm going to go set this down in my on my shelf. It has a little thing that just pops in right there. Okay, now we're going to put up the glitter. And we are going to go and see if this epoxy is still okay. All right, that is done. Glitter goes away. Okay, so this cup, oh, thank you. I just got my hair done. All right, so this cup looks pretty good. So we're still okay with this one. So I'm going to put this aside so I don't accidentally touch it. So this, I can either put on the spinner or I can just leave it aside. I always have to move the stuff out of the danger zones. Okay. Epoxy. So y'all are wondering if this is still good. We're still good on the epoxy. We are going to sand down a cup. So pretend like, no, the wedding's on Friday. We're going to pretend like this is after that is dry. Put on another layer of glitter on a cup, okay? Let me see if I have one that's ready. All right, this is my friend's cup. I'm sorry, Brittany, but I'm stealing it for now. But I'm going to put epoxy on it. All right, so pretend like this is the blue cup, okay? So we put the epoxy on it, then we put the glitter on it, okay? And this is what it is next. So it is glitter. So it still has glitter on it, okay? So we are going to get the electrical tape, and we're going to tape off that stainless part. So all the stainless gets taped off again. So we've already peeled off the tape on those. So the blue one that we just finished There's no tape on that, so we don't have to worry about that. But in an hour or so, we are going to have to take the tape off that silver one. So all I'm doing is I'm going to put this electrical tape all around the top and the bottom where that stainless is, because I don't want the epoxy on that part yet. It will eventually have the epoxy on it, but not right now. So electrical tape I get at Harbor Freight. I get it in bulk. It's super cheap there. I don't know if I would use the electrical tape on electrical things, but it works for my purpose. Harbor Freight's an awesome place. Like, it's discounted tools and other stuff. So you can get the sandpaper there. I actually get my brad nails there for the brad nailer, the nail gun or whatever. Okay, so now this is on here on the bottom. Cut it off, and I kind of just move the tape up so that way I still have a crisp line, and I'm going to fold the tape down. And I'm going to make sure that I have a good line at the bottom still. So we still have a good even line. I'm going to get my nail and just make sure I press it down. Now, if you do get epoxy underneath the tape, it's not that big of an issue. All you do is just sand it off. All right, so there's that. So now we're going to do the top. Do the same thing. Another thing that I forgot to tell you guys to get is like a Mod Podge spray, like a sealant spray to hold this glitter on. You don't have to have it. It's just preference, so that way when you're putting the epoxy on this next coat, it is not going all over the place. Okay, so looks like we're out of this electrical tape anyways. So all I'm doing is I'm going to push this down in here. Okay, so now we have that taped off. So I'm going to make sure that I have all the tape down at the little crevices there. Like I said, if you do have the epoxy that sneaks underneath it, no problem. You can take it off later. Okay. So now, Mod Podge spray. It's over there. Let me get it real quick. Hang on. Normally I do this outside, but for the sake of the video, let's hope I don't get high off Mod Podge spray. So this is a super high shine. It doesn't have to be. You could do the matte. You could do whatever one you want. I don't risk it with the matte, so I go ahead and get the glossy one. So what you're going to do, I'm at least going to do it over the trash can. And I'm going to have to do it underneath the table so I don't get it on my laptop or my phone. So I'm going to spray it. We're going to keep turning, and we're going to keep spraying it, okay? We're going to do that probably 2 or 3 times around. You could do it this way. You could do it this way. You want to make sure that you get this part right here, and you want to make sure that you get all the edges too, okay? All right. At least it doesn't smell kind of that bad. All right, so we have this here. So we're gonna go ahead and let that sit for a second. Yeah, still, it's super tacky. All right, so we're gonna let that sit for a second. Does anyone have any questions while we let it sit for a second? Let me get some water, and then we're gonna I'm gonna move you over to the spinners here in a second. Any questions, anybody? All right, so I'm gonna unhook you guys, and you guys are gonna come with me. So let's hope I don't drop you, because that'll be awesome. Kind of, not really. It's still a little wet. I don't do the Mod Podge glitter method. The epoxy is an adhesive. It's a sealant. It'll stick to any surface. I feel like that's a better bond versus Mod Podge to a stainless steel tumbler. So that's just my preference. You can still do the Mod Podge method. You will have to do the Mod Podge plus glitter, another layer of Mod Podge, and then glitter. So it's an extra step. And you have to make sure that the glitter and the Mod Podge is dry before you put on another coat. This way is better. It's just preference. I've done it since day one. Now spraying my tumblers is something that I learned from one of the groups. I'm not really sure. Alright, so I am going to put this on my spinner, and then I'm going to grab with you guys. Hang on. Alright, so the only thing about the live videos is you guys kind of have to hang on every once in a while. Alright, so now we need our epoxy. And I'm going to take you guys over there. Sorry about the messy room. Okay, so here are my spinners. Let's see if I can move some stuff around so you guys can sit up here with me. Well, let's see here. Okay. I did end up putting the silver one on there just to get out of my way. Okay, so here is the cup. Now, this is the way that I do it. This is all preference. I am going to cake on this epoxy. I'm going to cake it on. We might even need more of what's left on here. So kind of pour it on there. See how it's a little bit thicker? So we did let it sit a little long. So I am going to need to mix more epoxy. So when I do this, we're definitely going to need more epoxy because that was like almost half the thing and it's not even, not really moving that much here. Normally, I'm able to do multi-cups with this quickly, but since I'm, doing the tutorial, it kind of set up on me quicker than I would have hoped. Don't like it when it's this thick, but we can fix that here in a second. I'll show you what to do. Okay, almost out of the epoxy in here. Is this the epoxy the same as polyacrylic? No, epoxy is a two-part chemical where you have to mix two parts. Polyacrylic just comes straight out of the jar, and then you can put it on there. Epoxy, you need to mix the two parts. All right, so we're gonna go mix some more epoxy real quick. So bear with me, we're moving. I use a different cup because the Dixie cups kind of get all squishy. Dang it, I bought an apron so I don't get freaking epoxy everywhere. Oh. So Dixie cup, and we are using Amazing Clear Cast. I prefer Max CLR, but a lot of people use the Amazing Clear Cast. That's why I chose to do this way. So I'm going to go ahead and do half fluid ounce. I do these measuring cups and Dixie cups. So I measure it out with this little guy, and then I put both parts in the Dixie cup. So I'm going to measure this out, 1/2 ounce. So it's right in the middle. Okay, there's this. Put the lid on so you don't spill it everywhere. And now do the other part. I prefer Max CLOR. I'll show you the difference in just a second. I feel like it's more of a not craft epoxy, if that makes sense. I don't know how to explain it, but then I'll show you the color of it too. It is more expensive. Okay, so there's the 2 parts. Let me show you the 2 parts to this. Here's part 1 and part 2. Look at the colors. This is a new bottle. Bought this 2 or so weeks ago, okay? Now, look at the Max CLOR. More professional. Yes, there's the word. Here's the one. Industrial strength. Yes. Here's part 1. Here's the other part. See the difference in the color? So I feel like this won't yellow as quickly, and it doesn't, than the Amazing Clear Cast, because this is how it already starts out. I've had this bottle for quite a while. So since I've been doing tutorials, I keep using this one. So this I've had for quite a while. So you can see how jagged the whole thing is. So this, my preference, you can do whatever you want, but you can already tell from these 2 parts that this will last a lot longer with a clearer. It'll be more clear later on. I feel like the Max CLR I do not get as much bubbles with, and I feel like it settles a little bit more evenly than the Amazing Clear Cast, but it is more expensive. So sometimes I don't buy that just because of it is a little bit more expensive. All right, so now I'm going to put the 2 parts into my Dixie cup, and I'm going to stir that back up. And then I make sure that I get every little drop out of these things. So if you're just now tuning in, if you mix the epoxy not 100%, does it cure faster? No. It still takes about the same amount. I make sure that I take every last bit of epoxy out of the 2 cups because if you don't, it won't cure right if you don't have equal parts to it. So you got to make sure that you really stir it really well, and you also take it all out of these cups. Where do you buy Max CLR? CLR. Don't listen to me. CLR. Amazon and actually their website. I believe eBay has it as well. Okay. So now we're going to stir it really good. Now I'm like CLR because I keep telling you guys wrong. I'm telling you, I don't sleep at all, ever. Okay, so I'm giving this a good stir. I make sure it's off the walls of the cup. I make sure it's off the popsicle stick, then I do it again. So a lot of people let this sit. I prefer not to let it sit. I just continue doing whatever I'm doing. I continue doing my crafts. So letting it sit, people say that it gets rid of the bubbles, which is true. You don't have a lot of wiggle room with it once it does sit, because then it gets all that thickness that we just saw on that cup, and I don't like that. So I stir, 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 get it off the wall some more, take it off the popsicle stick. So some people say, why is my cup still sticky after it's been on the spinner for 24 hours? Something happened in the process of putting it on the cup and stirring it. That's just my best bet. It wasn't measured correctly, or it wasn't stirred correctly. Something happened before you put it on the cup. So there's a crap ton of bubbles in here. So if you guys can see, tons of bubbles. That's okay. We can get rid of the bubbles using a heat gun. Some people use a straw and kind of blow into the cup. I don't like it because all those fumes, the smell comes right back up to your face, and the heat gun just does it quicker anyways. All right, so get off the bottom, get off the walls, take off the popsicle stick. I do it again. We're going to make sure that it is not going to do it. Food safe, yes. Someone asked if what type of the Max CLR. You get the food safe one. All right, so now we have the epoxy. Now we're going to go back over there and maybe get a new brush. We should be fine. Okay, so let's go. Let's take a trip and not trip. Okay, so I'm going to set you here for just a second. And I'm going to go grab my heat gun that we used earlier. And I am going to heat up the stickiness, the sticky mess that is on this tumbler now. And I'm going to move this guy, just for the purpose of the tutorial. Okay, so if you see this, it's already been dripping. So it's all drippy here, and it's really thick. So I'm going to move my other epoxy because I'm clumsy and I will break everything and spill it all over the place. Okay, so I'm going to get my heat gun and I'm basically going to re-liquefy this epoxy on here because if I try to move this, it's not going to move. It's not going to be my friend. So see how it's all kinds of sticky? I'm going to re-liquefy it. It's not curing it right now. It does in the long run when you put heat on epoxy, it does help it cure faster, but this will not make it hard right now, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and give it some heat to it. Okay, so if you guys just noticed that, how quickly it heated up and I was able to move that thick epoxy around. So that's the goal of it. I want to make sure that all the epoxy that's still on here, I want to re-liquefy it and spread it back out. And if the epoxy was still fully liquid, we wouldn't be doing this step. But I don't like wasting epoxy, so I went ahead and put it on the cup. So see how now it's just dripping. So earlier, we couldn't even move it. And so I'm going to put the epoxy all at the rim here, making sure I don't get inside the cup. Okay, so here is some thick epoxy. So we're going to go ahead and do the same thing right there. Okay, yeah, so see how smooth that's coming along now? So it's dripping now. So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to re-liquefy the epoxy. So I'm going to make sure I get it all on that rim here. I'm going to spin the cup a little bit, and then we're going to put this epoxy on. Now, this is where I get my glass-like smooth finish, guys, on this step right here. After this step, most of the time, 90% of the time, I do not have to sand my cup in order to put my decal on. It's 100% smooth. If I use chunky glitter, then I do because the chunky glitter comes up, but this is where I get my glass-like finish. So I'm going to pour a ton of epoxy on here. So where it is dripping. So I'm actually going to move my heat gun because I don't want my heat gun to be all sticky. So I poured a bunch of epoxy on here. How much? I don't know. We just keep pouring. So it's gonna be a thick coat this first coat. Because sometimes I put a decal on it and I only need one more coat. I'm not putting 4 coats of epoxy on here. So this is considered my first 2 coats of what other people do. You know what I mean? Because it's so thick, it would be considered 2 coats. So we're going to coat this on here. Make sure you don't get underneath that tape there. You go every which way. It does not matter if you have streaks in this epoxy. You can go up, you can go down, you can go side to side, you can do whatever you want, okay? At the bottom and on the top, you want to make sure you don't get underneath the tape or inside the cup though, okay? I do make sure on this little crease here, we're going this way. We make sure that we get all that mountains in there, okay? Whatever, hill, bump, or whatever that is. So I know I have enough epoxy on here when I do see its drip. So that's fine. All right, so then people are like, okay, so what do you do about all these bubbles? That's where the heat gun comes into play. So I put a ton of epoxy on here, a ton of epoxy. All right, so now if I were to grab my paintbrush and try to get this epoxy off, this is how much epoxy is on here. It is going to be dripping off, okay? So to me, this is my preference, and this is how I get that glass-like smooth finish on the first go around. I'm not having to do 100 different coats to try to get a smooth finish. So that looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to put my epoxy aside. And then, this is why I prefer a single cup rotator, so I can just have my cup spinning individually versus what I'm going to have to do to this one. So I'm going to put my heat gun on low. So you can get this from Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart, Harbor Freight. You can get a heat gun anywhere. People use the embossing tool from a craft store. You can do that as well. So I'm going to heat the whole thing. I'm going to make sure I give it a good generous amount of heat on here because I'm making sure that I re-level the epoxy. So that's why it didn't matter if I went this way or this way. My heat gun is going to liquefy the epoxy back up and let the epoxy settle wherever it wants to settle, wherever it needs to settle. And it's also going to pop the bubbles. So I did not pop the bubbles in the cup or anywhere else. This is where I'm popping the bubbles. If you stir epoxy, 85% of the time you will have bubbles, and if you don't have bubbles, please tell me your magic trick, because if you stir epoxy together, you will have bubbles. If you look, I really hope I don't drop my phone on the cup. If you look on the cup, you can see all the dips and rivets. You can see all those imperfections and all that stuff. When you heat gun it up, like I said, it's going to re-liquefy this epoxy and have the epoxy resettle itself. It is a lot easier to pop the bubbles with the heat gun. So after I use the heat gun, there will not be any bubbles on my cup at all. Okay. I'm actually going to put a little bit more epoxy on here. I can see specks of glitter kind of sticking up. I do not want that. So I'm going to put more epoxy on it. With the other epoxy heated up, I probably won't have to reheat the epoxy, but I can. And this epoxy is literally dripping everywhere. And that's the way it goes. So that's why I don't like the multi-cup spinner. Because I just don't like it dripping on other cups. So this, when I'm touching this other epoxy right now, it's reheating up the top layer of epoxy that I'm doing. So I won't have to reheat this up right now. I can see how much more liquefied the top coat is. Okay, so this is what I'm gonna do. We're gonna leave this now. We're gonna turn on the little thingy here. And now we're gonna come back over to the table. So that technically is the second coat, okay? There we go. Okay, so now, say we had, pretend we had, that's dry, and now we didn't have to, we had to sand it. So say we did have to sand it, because sometimes we do have to sand it. So this cup right here, we have to sand. So here this cup we do have to sand. So also we're going to sand the top right here. So I got sandpaper out. This is a little bit more coarse than that 600 grit. This is probably 180 maybe. So all I do is cut this up, and just so I can hold it, I kind of fold it up, and then basically I'm just going to sand it down, okay? So this is the way it looks like. So you guys don't freak out when your cup starts to look like this. So if you see there, all those little bumps, that means that wasn't smooth. That wasn't a smooth finish right there. So this is what it looks like, y'all. So don't freak out. That's the way it's supposed to look. I'm going to go find different sandpaper. Hang on one second. This one's a little bit finer, so I'm going to continue using this one. So this is going to get those bigger scratches right back out. So you just keep sanding it until the whole thing, there's no scratches in it. So like right here would be okay. And then you need to go and wash it with like Dawn dish soap. So now people ask me, how do you get this up here smooth? So if you notice, if you pull the glitter all the way to the top, you're going to have that glitter mark right there. You're going to get the finer sandpaper, and all I do, gently, I'm going to sand the edge here. So that's going to be a smooth finish. So I know that here's the stainless right there. So I'm going to go all around this top right here and make sure there's no epoxy and no glitter right here at the top. So right here, I feel glitter. So we're going to make sure we get that glitter off. So that glitter's off now. Go all through this lip. And now you can go back and get this lip right here. So you're going to sand all that top off where it's all smooth, okay? so you don't have that rough glitter all at the top. So here is now, there's a smoother finish right at the top. And so, like I said, pretend like you did this whole cup. You can sand it with a little bit rougher if you have really big mountains and stuff. And then you go back and sand it down with a finer sandpaper to get those other scratches out. So see how there's big scratches? You can get it out with the finer sandpaper. And then wash it with Dawn dish soap and then go about your business. All right, so pretend this is done. So that's the next step. So now the other step would be you can either put the decal on or put another layer of epoxy on. And that's the step that I do not like doing. So I really want this one step to work out. So this one, when I do this next step after the glitter that we just did to that gold, I really want that to be a glass-like smooth finish right then and there so I do not have to sand, okay? So this cup worked out perfect. So this is a glass-like smooth finish. And this is with the tape off of here, okay? So we are going to prep this cup. I already have the decal, so we are literally going to do this step by step here. I have not cut out my decal, and I'm going to show you what we do with that. I try not to get glitter on every single thing that I own, but it's impossible to not do that. So I did a shadow effect on here. This white is going to be the background for the shadow. Okay, so there's that. Now I need to get all those little pieces out of here. And normally I can't really hear my spinner because I have music on. Okay, so that is done being peeled. Now I'm going to peel this one up. Okay, so there's that. Now I'm going to get the negative space out. Sorry, this is the boring part and I can't fast forward through this on the live video. Do we have anyone new that joined us since we first started? Got 16 people still on, so is that the same 16 people we started with? It's been jumping to like 16 to 20 to 14 to... If I can get this off my fingers. Really? I have the weeding stuff everywhere. I have glitter everywhere. Now that that is done, we are going to set this aside, and I need a razor blade. Hang on. Okay, we are going to clean up this cup. So if you see on the edges here, we got that little white epoxy. I let my cups rotate probably for the first hour. So I'm gonna get this little extra stuff off of here. So I get my razor blade, and you try not to cut yourself. So I'm basically just going to get this top coat right here. I'm going to take that off. So I'm getting right up against the butt of this line up here. So I'm getting all that weird white gunk off. I know I should. The live tutorials on YouTube might not be working. No, only 16-ish people are on. And you can't fast forward through the boring stuff. I'm getting the stuff off the razor blade, so don't cut yourself if you do it my way and rub the razor blade on your body. Safety first, guys. Okay. Looks like most of that white gunk is off. So now we have a crisper line at the top. So I'm going to do the same thing to the bottom. The reason why I do this is because I bring my epoxy all the way to the bottom. So if I epoxy this in, you're going to see all that weird stuff at the bottom, and I don't like that look. So I just make sure I have a really crisp, fresh look here. Now, some people just use a sandpaper and get it off. That's your preference. Some people don't get it off. That's your preference. Okay. Now we have a good crisp line at the bottom, too. Michelle says she's on the video. She just doesn't know how to comment. That's pretty funny. All right, so the cup has been spinning for a little bit. So this is what I do. We're going to come back over there. I try to time it, but time gets away from me sometimes. So now I'm going to come back over here. We're going to reheat the cup back up. So this is giving the epoxy another chance to re-level itself. It's going to pop any bubbles that I've missed. It's going to make the epoxy go in those bubbles, go in like the dips that I've missed. So this is what I do for the first hour. So I'm going to come back to the cup, reheat it up. All right, so that's reheated. I'm gonna put it back on the, or turn the spinner back on and let it do its thing a little bit longer. Did the video freeze? On my laptop, it's not moving. You guys still there? All right, I think I'm back. Yeah, there I am. I don't know what I did to my computer. Okay, now we are going to get the sandpaper. What did I do with it? Where's the sandpaper at? Just kidding. I put it in the cup. Okay, so we're gonna get the really coarse, or the really fine sandpaper. I'm actually gonna try this one today. This one's like super, super fine. It didn't freeze for you? Maybe it was just me. Okay, so I'm gonna get this sandpaper. I haven't used the 600 grit before, but I'm gonna try it. So basically, I'm gonna make sure that I don't have any scuff marks or anything on the stainless part. So I'm gonna go through with the sandpaper and get any of that stuff off. So this is taking off any weird random lines that I don't want there. Any extra epoxy that I don't want there. And then this 600 grit is pretty cool. I'm digging it. Michelle says, and I think she's messaging me. I can't tell where she's talking to me at. Have I ever tried a block buffer? No, I have no idea what that is. What's a block buffer, Michelle? And a lot of people don't do this step. So like I said, this is your preference. This is just what I do. Okay. So all those little lines are pretty smooth now. Oh, Michelle, you probably can't comment because... Yeah, so Michelle, are you watching directly? Are you signed in? That's what I'm thinking. Maybe you're not signed in, Michelle. Like, make a YouTube account and sign in. Alright, so she says it's a square block that when you do your nails. Girl, you know I don't do my nails either. Remember, I'm getting my nails done for the wedding for next week. So that'll be an experience. I have had my nails done before. It's just not often. Okay. So now, that looks pretty snazzy. So I'm liking the 600 grit that I just tried today. I'm going to go give this a quick wash because the next coat we're going to put the decal on, and I don't want any of that sandpaper or that black residue that's on my hands to be on underneath my layer. So y'all hang tight, take a break, go to the bathroom real quick. I'm going to go wash this in my kitchen. So I'll be back. Go take a potty break. Okay, this is dry, or need to be dried now. So basically all that stuff. Hey Joanne, so I used electrical tape so I can do this. So I can make sure that it is a straight line at the top. So I get an expo marker and I just straighten that out at the top there. And I noticed one little spot where some weird stuff is at. So I'm going to take that off here. Okay. So now we have a dry cup. So some people pull their glitter all the way to the top. That's your preference. I do on some cups. Some cups I don't. So now we are going to put the decal on. So this is after you've epoxy, glitter, epoxy, sometimes sand, epoxy, and then you put the decal on. I try to skip that extra epoxy if I can, because I don't like doing the extra step. Let's see. And then you want to make sure that your cup, so I feel like one little random glitter here. I want to make sure that my decal is not underneath that thing. Okay, so Joanne's saying that she's seen other people use painter's tape. I prefer electrical tape because it's stretchy. Painter's tape doesn't really stretch. So electrical tape, I can maneuver it around corners better. I use them for my wine glasses and my coffee mugs. It just maneuvers around better for me. Okay, so now I have my decal. So I did a shadow layer for my decal, which is the background, because I couldn't find a matching vinyl that I really wanted to use. So I'm using red and white, okay? So I really don't like doing the wet method on camera because I always mess it up and I always have to redo it. So basically the wet method to applying vinyl is, this is going to allow you to move your vinyl around. So if you come on here, you know how when you get just regular vinyl and a regular transfer tape and you put it on here, and if you mess it up and it's crooked, you're kind of screwed, right? You got to peel the whole thing off and you got to do it again. But when you do the wet method, you can kind of move it around, so you kind of have some wiggle room, okay? So this is, I just don't like doing it on video because, like I said, I always mess it up. It's a different type of tape here. So this is the stuff that you can use to get wet. This is what that is. I don't know what it's called. That's just what I do. So I'm going to give it a good cut off here. I'm going to put my transfer tape, I guess it's wet transfer tape, I don't know. Transfer tape on here. We're going to put it on here. You're going to get your little varnishing tool. It's just paper transfer tape. All right, cool. If somebody has a better way to do this, this is just how I've always done it, feel free to speak up. All right, so I make sure it's good and varnished on there. And then, make sure that doesn't get sticky on anything. I have a paintbrush and I have water in this little mason jar here. I'm going to put water on here. Okay, so I'm going to put this all water down. And then I'm also going to put water on the tape. So like I said, this is just what I do. If y'all do it a different way, I mean, that's fine. So I'm going to do it on the tape. And as long as you varnish this down pretty good, you're not going to have any issues with the the decal sticking, so you'll be good. So, I mean, good amount of water, okay? So now, I'm going to get this, and I'm going to put it on there and even it up. So, some people are super OCD with putting on decals. I kind of eyeball it. Okay, so my shadow layer's on. I should have put more water underneath it. I press it down from the middle, and then I only press down one side first. So if it has like a little flip out thing on the side, then I'm going to go and rub that down all the way. So I'm going to start from the middle, then rub it down, okay? So you can use your fingers, or you can use a little varnishing tool. That's up to you. So I'm doing the same thing on this side. Now I'm just going to laugh so hard if this is a really uneven decal. Okay, so it's pretty stuck down. Okay, so now I just make sure that it's all stuck down. And when you do the wet method, it also helps with bubbles underneath. So if you ever notice, if you have like a really big piece of something and you have all those bubbles, it's because it's not the wet method. Like there could be something underneath it. But then basically the wet method is you have water underneath it. And so when you're pushing the vinyl out, you can kind of push out all those other bubbles. All right, so there is that. So now we need to put on the other one. So you can either reuse that paper transfer tape or don't. That's up to you. Yes, I've used the Dawn soap before. It was such a pain in the butt to get that soap out. Like the Dawn, you can mix it with the water. Some people use the oil. Some people use a little spritz can or whatever to apply that. So that's your preference. And then I've never layered with this kind of tape, so hopefully I can see through it pretty well. Normally I layer with the clear tape, so let's see what happens here. Well, you gotta varnish it pretty good to get it off. Okay. The scraper is just a squeegee, and sometimes I use the fabric side when I'm on like rougher surfaces when I don't want to scratch the vinyl up. But on the cups, I don't use that other side. And Michelle, you need to figure out how you can comment on the video. She's still messaging me. I think she's messaging me. All right, I hope I didn't just put too much water on there. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do, you layer on top of this shadow, and I can hardly see. Okay, so I start from the middle, and then work my way out and press it down. Julie, right now I'm not using the epoxy. I'm just using a brush to apply this water to apply the decal. I'll show you what brush I do use for the epoxy though here in a second. Okay, so now we get all the water off. On other surfaces, someone's asking if you can use the water method on other surfaces. I generally just use it on glass, ceramic, because you know how when you put your decal down and it immediately gets stuck to it? This is trying to avoid that. All right, so, and it gets rid of all the bubbles. So if you ever notice on like glass surfaces or whatever, you have all those bubbles in it, this is going to get rid of the bubbles. So, what color glitter is the red? This one, I believe I got off of China wholesale website. I think this is what this red is. Yeah, when lettering race cars, yeah, so that way it doesn't stick on there. So here is this. So now, the next step we do is, I want to make sure there's no water underneath there. Okay, so now, electrical tape. No electrical tape. We already sanded it. Now this needs some epoxy. Okay. We still have some epoxy in here. So we're good. I'm going to go put this on the spinner, because I don't think I can carry everything at once. Hang on. All right, it's on the spinner. They wanted your firstborn to comment. That's pretty funny. All right. Now, let's come over there. Y'all, if you're on my last video, Evan is in Canada right now. And so he's messaging me right now. I can see his little bubble right there. He's on vacation in Canada. He doesn't have cell service up there, so he's probably telling me that he has internet service, is why he messaged me on Facebook. If you see this, so it did not leak anywhere. It didn't go anywhere. So this is what we did earlier. This was not on a spinner. I'm moving it out of my way though, because I know I'll bump into it. Okay, so now we have enough epoxy to do this coat, to do this. What we're gonna do first, that silver sparkly, yeah, that's from Michael's. It's the bling. I'm gonna bring my gold cup back over here. We're going to reheat the gold cup up. So if you just now started with us again, I do this to get a glass-like smooth finish the first go around, so I do not have to do another layer of epoxy. So, I'm going to stop my spinner. Whoa, okay, you guys almost just fell into the doom of spinners. Okay. Michelle, you haven't put glitter on a tumbler yet? Julie, I do not let my epoxy sit with the heat. It pops all the bubbles. Michelle, you can do a glitter on a water bottle that's not metal. I've done plenty of that. Because that was English. But Julie, this is the way I do it. I don't let my epoxy sit at all. I don't like it when it gets tacky or thick. I just go at it with the heat gun. Quit being scared. Good night, Sarah. All right, so someone just asked if I see a change in the epoxy when I'm heating it. Yes. If you can tell on this, and I really hope I don't drop my phone into the cup. Okay. Well, hang on. Let it come back to the other side and I'll stop it. This makes it so, bite the bullet. When I put it on the spinner and I do my multi-coats or multi-heat gun process, it re-levels the epoxy and lets it sit in the places where it missed. Okay, so I'm going to have a glass-like smooth finish on this cup after this I'm done. So this is the first coat of epoxy on here, guys. So if you see, you can already see that straight line of the glare of a glass-like smooth finish. I do see one little lump right here. So I'm going to go ahead and give that a little bit more heat, and it'll re-liquefy the epoxy to give it another chance to do its business, okay? And when you heat the epoxy up, it takes away the bubbles too. So I don't even take away the bubbles before I put them on the cup. Heat gun, you can use a hair dryer. I have not. I get a heat gun. I've got it from Lowe's, Home Depot, and Harbor Freight. Harbor Freight probably has the cheapest. They're $19.99. Sometimes when they have their manager specials, they're $14.99. Lori, wait, who said that? Who's talking about nails? So when I used to do epoxy jewelry, in order for the stuff to cure faster, like I could be done with a piece of jewelry in 4 hours, when normally you can't take a tumbler off the spinner after 8 hours. If I'm trying to figure out a way that I could put my tumblers in a dehydrator that's big enough to fit a tumbler machine in. So I know that sounds crazy, but I can produce a lot more cups a lot quicker because a dehydrator will cure. Heat won't cure it faster. It does in a sense, but a dehydrator will cure it a lot faster. But I can't figure out how I'm going to build that one day. Yes, I sell a lot of cups, but I also do other stuff too. And when I'm working on cups, they kind of take up everywhere. So if I can get them done quicker, then I can have more time to do the other part of my business too. All right, so now let's go to our red cup over here. So this one, we have to make sure. I want this to be the last coat. Let me come back to those comments in just a second because they keep disappearing, and I just solved 4 new questions. Okay, so see how this is super tacky now? I'm going to give this a good spritz of the heat gun inside the cup so I can get it more reliquefied, and then I'm going to put it on here. And try not to blow anything up because that just kind of got all smoky, which I hate doing that way. Okay, so now I'm going to put the epoxy on here. Some people use their finger. I don't like touching the epoxy at all. It's too sticky for me. So I don't do that. Some people use a glove, so you could do that. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I really hope that that vinyl doesn't bleed. So I'm going to put some epoxy on here. And I can still tell it's a little bit sticky, so it's going to be really annoying. So I'm going to go ahead and just put some on there. This brush is from Target. I got it in the kids' crafting area. And I just clean them with acetone when I'm done. Well, I don't actually clean them. Yes, I'm nervous about dripping onto the other cup. That's why I hate the multi-cup spinners. All right, so it's still a little bit too tacky. At this point in this process right here, since there's no glitter flaking off of anything, it won't matter if this epoxy drips onto the other one. Since I just now reheated the bottom one, they're kind of in the same liquefied state, if that makes sense. So I really feel like that red is bleeding, but it's also dark over here, so I really hope not. Maybe it's just the glare. Okay, so this is really, really thick. So all I'm doing is I'm just trying to get the epoxy on. Then I'm going to reheat it so that way I can spread it a little bit more. This is why I don't heat it up before, because I don't like wasting the epoxy at all. Okay, so see how that's kind of gross looking? So I'm going to re-liquefy it. So this is enough epoxy to finish this cup, but I need to re-liquefy it. So I'm going to put the heat gun in my right hand and use this, and we're going to spread it out. So now, when I'm going to spread this out, I'm going to pull my paintbrush this way. I'm not going to do this way because I want to pull the epoxy right here on the stainless part. Yes, you have to mix the CLR epoxy. I'm worrying for you. Yeah, it really does look like the red bled for some reason. I've never had vinyl bleed, so I'm going to be really irritated if that just bled. I don't know. So, and up here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pull the epoxy up. I'm not going to go this way. So I might go this way to get right there in this crease and right here in this crease, but I'm not going to go this way. I want to pull it up and go move the clear epoxy up here. So that way I'm sealing in this bottom glitter. So anywhere where there wasn't epoxy where I sanded it off, I'm going to put epoxy back over it. So that way the water isn't getting underneath this whole thing right here. I'm going to re-liquefy it because the bottom's leaking a little bit faster. So I'm going to re-liquefy the whole thing, and then I'm going to use my paintbrush. Yes, I add epoxy up there. red vinyl is bleeding. So I don't know if it's because it's right on top of that white or what. I don't understand what's happening. So you epoxy all the silver showing on the cup. Yes, I do. All right, so I'm going to get this epoxy to spread a little bit better. So down here it's still a little thick, so I'm going to have to get the heat gun, but some spots was really thick, so I don't want it to keep dripping. So let me go ahead and spread it out, and then I'm going to get the heat gun again, and we're going to go at it again. Because it didn't get on the silver at all. Yeah, it's 851. So now I'm going to pull this up here. Yes, I've used heat transfer vinyl and on a cup. So I'm going to get this paintbrush and I'm going to get right there at that crack because it's not getting right there in that crack. So I'm going to get right there, making sure I don't go inside the cup. This is why I do not like using tacky epoxy. Do not like it at all. Okay, so down here I'm going to do the same thing. We're going to get right there in that crack. I'm going to have to reheat the epoxy one more time. I'm almost to the state I wanted it to be at. Just want to make sure it's in that little crack there. Okay. I'll rotate my bottom cup there. Okay, now the reason why I like the single cup spinners is because they just rotate by itself and I don't have to sit there and try to move it with my hand up there. Okay, so now I'm going to make sure that the epoxy is everywhere. Now that it's pretty liquefied, and now I'm going to bring it to the top. So I'm going to pull it and make sure that the whole top has a good layer. So do this any which way up here to make sure the epoxy is in all areas. I'm going to pull it to the top with the silver right here. The same thing, we're going to move it every which way. Make sure it's all on that silver spot. Bring it all the way up. All right, so now I'm going to come down. I do a really good sweep right here in the center to make sure that all that epoxy is there. And then swoosh that around at the bottom. Now I'm going to make sure I pull it all the way to the bottom. And I'm going to wisp it down. Wisp it down. And then make sure I get in that crease because I see a little spot where there wasn't a crease there. I mean, not the crease, but the bump. All right, so that's a pretty good layer there. It's still a little tacky. This is why I do not like heating up epoxy before I put it on a cup. I should have just remix some epoxy. All right, so now I'm going to give it another good heat. I'm going to focus right here on the silver spots because when you stir up the epoxy a little bit more, you get more bubbles. So I'm going to make sure all the bubbles are popped because on that silver spot, you will see your bubbles. All right, that's freaking hot. Okay, so now we're going to go through the whole thing and reheat it up. Make sure it's re-leveled. I want to make sure it's on the spinner so it doesn't jump off the spinner, but that was freaking hot. All right, so now what I'm going to do, the spinner's on, okay? So now I'm going to make sure that this wasn't tampered with. This is why I like the single cup spinners, because when I saw at the bottom, there's a this was bubbling at the bottom because it wasn't spinning. So I'm going to basically heat up both right now. Okay, we're coming back over here. All right, so now let's answer questions. Someone said that they use a small heater on their thing. You can use a heater. That's just the way I do mine. Let me go back through the comments real quick. Let's remove the electrical tape from that silver one. So before I forget, let me try to take my spongy out of here. Okay. So someone says, how long do you leave the electrical tape on? Just make sure it doesn't dry, because if once it dries, you're going to have a bad time. And I pull away from it just so I don't accidentally drop this onto that. Okay, so now the top part. It's really weird not listening to crafts or listening to music while I craft. Okay. My face looks so awesome when I'm doing that. That's super. Okay. So now we have the electrical tape removed. And so now this is done for the night. I wait till this is completely dry, and then I go back and I put epoxy on it and it goes on a spinner. All right, so now next question. Julie, most of my stuff has been, why no music? Because my video that I uploaded the other night, it got flagged as copyright because I was listening to Pandora, and Chris Brown, it somehow detected that I was listening to Kiss Kiss way in the background. So it was kind of weird. So no music because it's copyright. Word of mouth or Etsy. So I've been selling my cups in all of my local Facebook groups online. I just now started posting them on Etsy. And I think I started my Etsy like 3 weeks ago for my cups. I sold 9 in one day the other day. So I'm trying to figure out a quick way to do it. So word of mouth, it got me a lot of business. Word of mouth, and then Facebook. So Facebook and the yard sale group. So that's where I've been selling them at. Like I said, I just now started the Etsy up. Selling the cups on Etsy is a little bit difficult. You really have to make sure you have great pictures on Etsy. And that's something I'm struggling with right now. I do have my light fixture, which really bright over there. I have a couple of those, so that's where I take my pictures. That's another topic. I'm not a pro at the pictures, so I don't know about that part. Julie, no, this is not my only job. I work full-time. I go to school full-time, and I do this full-time. So, and then I try to have a life. So that's why I look kind of crazy in most of my videos. Today I caked on my makeup, so I was trying not to look super crazy in this one. But no, this is not my only job. I wish it was. Get a friend who's a photographer. I'm working on that. I don't even edit my own video. I don't edit my own pictures. So I take my pictures and I send them to somebody that I found on Facebook, and she actually edits my pictures for me. So she kind of changes the lighting on them and then crops them and stuff like that. Can you even tell them that my hair is different? I can only tell because I can feel it thinner. So she gave me some bangs, if you were watching my video the other day. So she gave me some bangs and we dyed my hair too. So anyways, I hope this looks good for the wedding, right? Can I briefly explain how I turn this into a business? All right, so here's a lowdown on that. Oh, you have worked in the salon for 20 years? That's awesome. Okay, so how I briefly turn this into a business. It wasn't easy. So 2010, I actually lost my job when I was working on Hollywood Video. They closed the company down. So I was moved to Houston to work for the company, and then I signed a 6-month lease. So then I had 3 months left of my lease. So I started out selling handmade jewelry. I've been crafting my entire life. I think I was crafting before I was walking, okay? So I've been crafting for forever. So in 2010 is when I was like, okay, I really need to do something because I'm stuck down here for 3 months. I did not want to break my lease, so I really needed to do something. So that's when I started actually selling stuff online on Etsy. So in 2010, that's when I did that. I've been selling the tumblers for about a year now. It's been, like I said, all word of mouth and on Facebook. And then I sell wood signs and wine glasses and coffee mugs. So I've had a bunch of tutorials on how to do these, and I would reach over there for, like, here's my drinking glass. So I've been doing that for 2 to 3 years now, basically glittering everything. So I've been doing this a really long time. So I sell a bunch of wood signs too. The vinyl stuff, I've been doing that for about 3 years as well. I've been working with resin, like epoxy resin, however you want to say it, for 10 plus years. So I'm really familiar on how epoxy works. I feel like that's what people struggle with the most when they're doing the glitter tumblers, because they can't get the epoxy to sit right and do what they want it to do. So that's why I'm trying to teach my methods on what I've learned versus just how to just apply it to a tumbler, because there's lots more things that epoxy can work for. Epoxy's awesome. So I used to sell resin jewelry, epoxy jewelry, and I actually used to make the molds to pour the epoxy into. So that's a whole different process, but it was super awesome. You can put all kinds of stuff into the epoxy. So epoxy is a hardener. It's a 2-part chemical. You put the 2 parts together and you mix it up. If you don't mix it up well enough, you're going to have a bad time, okay? So it just flourished from there. So doing the jewelry, and I used to sell bow supplies. I used to sell bows and tutus, all that kind of stuff. So I went to craft shows, and so I got a lot of clientele there. This past year, I've gone to a bunch of craft shows as well. I just can't keep up with the craft shows anymore since I'm doing full-time school and work. So I am legal to sell in the state of Texas. I pay taxes. I do all that boring stuff, which I hate keeping up with. So yeah, so there's that. There's that question. Let me go to the next one. Okay. What kind of brush? Where is my bucket? I swear. Like oh, here it is. I'm a little crazy sometimes. Michelle, yes. I sold all of my epoxy stuff because I'm like, I'm not going to do any of this epoxy jewelry anymore. Like, no, I'm not going to do it anymore. What I used to do for the epoxy jewelry is all of my old makeup, all that eyeshadow, it's a pigment. So crack up all the eyeshadow, smush it all, get it really fine where there's not any chunks. You can mix that into the epoxy and put it on there. Yeah, mix it straight into the epoxy. So you're not going to get a really good coat out of it. So what some people are doing that I've seen on the tumblers, they're painting the tumbler first, sometimes even doing a whole coat of another color and then drizzling it on there. You could do that. So you could go to solardust.com, I think. You can get all kinds of thermal pigment that you can put into the epoxy, where it's heat activated, cold activated, light activated, where it changes colors. You can do all that stuff. What I used to do in my resin jewelry, we would put lights inside the jewelry, so it was super cool. So they're like little LED lights, but the tumblers aren't that thick. You can't do that. So you can put anything, really. You don't want to put anything water-based and stuff into epoxy. Any kind of pigment you can do, powders you could do, sawdust. But the eyeshadow thing was pretty cool. There is a pigment powder that you can do. That's like the color concrete thing. Yeah. So there is the pigment powder that you can do, and they sell it at Michael's. It's just basically a little tube like this and has a bunch of powder in it. You can mix that up really, 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 really well into the epoxy, and you can drizzle that onto your tumblers. Yeah, you can do old nail polish color as well. So you can play around with it. So as long as your epoxy is stirred really super well, it's going to be fine. Now, if you pour paint just straight on top of the epoxy tumbler, it might not cure well. So the paint will dry, yes, but if it's your top coat of epoxy and you have epoxy sitting here and then you have some paint sitting here, the paint will dry and the epoxy will dry, but then you won't have, sometimes you won't have the coat of epoxy on top of the acrylic paint. So always worry about that and focus on that. But now if you put the epoxy, if you put the paint inside the epoxy and stirred it up and made epoxy and paint mixture, that'll do just fine. The tie-dye effect, yeah, I could do that too. So my paint brushes, I got these at Target. They came in little kids section. I don't know how much they were. I think they're in the pack of like 5. I don't use this thick one. It's kind of weird. I don't know why I have it in there. It's probably, I don't know what I did. So I use those. I did find these. I meant to use it in the video. I found these at Walmart the other day. They're silicone little brushes. So I was going to use this little spatula. I was going to try this, but now I forgot. So epoxy, you got to make sure when you're stirring it in certain cups, it's not going to stick to plastic. Epoxy will stick to plastic. So you don't really want to do like a plastic spoon. You can do silicone because it'll pop right off. LDPE plastic, you can use that because it pops right off. Let's see the next question. All right. I think that was all the questions. Oh, does electrical tape leave a sticky residue? Sometimes, since I use the Harbor Freight one, it's not as high quality as like a Home Depot or a Lowe's electrical tape, so sometimes it does leave a residue. Just get it off with alcohol, rubbing alcohol, or you can do it with acetone, or you can even just sand it off. Okay? So this video, 2 hours and 44 minutes. I really didn't, I was trying to keep it on 2 hours, but that didn't work out. So I showed you guys how to take off the wrapper to the tumbler, I didn't actually spray paint the tumbler. Yeah, you can use the barbecue brushes like this, these little guys. I really wanted to use this just so I can shake it. I didn't use those, but you can. Yeah, so that'd be cool to use. So if these paintbrushes, if they decide to stop selling them or whatever, then I'll just switch to something else. Like I said, I don't use my finger on it. I already contaminate my body with all these other chemicals. I'm not going to directly put my hand in not cured epoxy and then put it on a cup. Plus, I don't like the way it feels. It's sticky and it's gross. So, and then I'll go touch something else and then everything will be sticky. So I just use something else to apply the epoxy to the tumblers. What else we got? You can spray paint your cups first. I don't know. Y'all have any more questions for me? I know there's only 15 people on now. Any other questions? My next tutorial is going to be 851 is adhesive vinyl. It's what I used on my tumbler. It's Oracle. Well, 851. What is that one? 851 is, I think that's permanent adhesive. 651 is permanent. 631 is semi-permanent. 851, I think that's permanent as well. But it's just an adhesive vinyl. What else? What else we got? Any other questions? Give it about 30 more seconds and then we'll be done for the night. And then most of my glitter, I get it from either online in China. I get it from eBay. And then I really like the bling stuff from Michaels. So I get this from Michaels. This is Recollections. All right, Tiffany says 851 is a permanent vinyl, but it's a cast vinyl. I don't know what that means. What does that mean, Tiffany? The higher the number in vinyl, the higher the grade is. There you go. Awesome. Okay. Normally I use 651. This is what I basically stick with is a 651. The 631, however, I do use that on wood signs. So 631 doesn't stick to the wood sign as much. So that way I can peel it up and it's not peeling off my paint. So 631, that's what I use for that. All right, what else we got? Yeah. It's easier. That's so much easier to do it that way. The 651 sticks to the wood and just tears it all up apart. Okay, just a different process of way it is made for the vinyl. I look all kinds of weird. All right, so if you guys have any questions, feel free to message me on Facebook, post in the group. You can still comment on here. My next tutorial, I want to do 631 is removable, yes. So when I want to put vinyl all over my walls, I use 631, not 651. My next tutorial is going to be this one. I took a dress pic earlier and I look weird in it because I don't have a full mirror, so I took it like this. But I do have it. Maybe I'll post it. Maybe not. You're welcome, Jennifer. You're welcome, Lori. All right, so the next one I'm going to decoupage a tumbler. Well, it might be tonight. Might not. I won't do a live one. No rolling of the eyes. I did no such thing. I was trying to see how this live thing would work, if I'd get more interaction with the live on YouTube. I wanted to make sure all my videos are in one place, so that's why I wanted to bring it over to YouTube. You're welcome, Plum Crazy Graphics. All right, guys. Hope you guys learned something. Let me know if I can be more helpful or change a little things up or different lighting or whatever as I continue all of this. So anyways, y'all, thanks for watching, and make sure you guys subscribe to my channel so that way you guys see all the upcoming videos that I'm going to be posting. Yes, wait. What, Michelle? I guess I can go out there. Well, it's not going to look the same. Is epoxy done after use or can it be saved? No, the epoxy, once you got to use it right then. You can't save it. You can't reheat it later. So after like 1 hour, it's going to be pretty tacky and it's not going to reheat like we were doing on the tumblers earlier. So just throw it away. Yes, once you mix A and B. Now, if you like leave your cap off of the bottles, it's not going to be a problem. But once you mix the two parts, you're going to have a bad time. All right. Like I said, subscribe to the channel so that way you can see upcoming videos. If you have any questions, ask in the group or you can message me because I'm always online. All right, y'all have a good night. Thank you guys for watching.